for you right now. You know, Arthur Pawlowski is a reformer pastor who is right now facing like 10 years prison for preaching to the truckers that were standing up against Twinkle Toes Trudeau up there, the prime minister of the he wants to be the new Marxist Cuban leader of Canada. And he hates this guy that I'm interviewing because this guy, they tried to buy him off. They tried to give him a position in government. He will not stop talking. That's what I love about my guest right now, Arthur Pawlowski. Now, I'm not going to stop talking either about one thing. We're watching the American political system shake. We're going to watch the American economic system shake. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken. But I'll tell you what will not be shaken. And the prophet Haggai said it. When everything shakes, God said the silver is mine and the gold is mine, and God is going to fund his own kingdom enterprises. So I want you to go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and find out how you can position yourself in silver, in gold with your IRA and prepare yourself for the shaking that's coming. And even if you say, well, I don't have any money, Lance, knowledge is wealth. Read the 21-page free download, My People Perish for Lack of Knowledge. Don't let it be said of you that you didn't even prepare yourself, because God can get into your hands whatever you need to get the job done in your life. Go to lancewallnau.com/Birch and invest in the knowledge you need. And let's get into this bold reformers message right now. Welcome to the Lance Wallnau Show. You know, this show is always dealing with something interesting. We recently, of course, have been covering the bizarre development in North America of communist-type, Marxist-type government behavior, intimidating citizens, locking them up, threatening them with jail time or imprisonment, using lawfare to destroy them, financially drain them. I'm talking about what Biden's doing with Donald Trump and what Trudeau is doing with clergy. I mean, what's happening in Canada is the canary in the coal mine for the United States. I remember during the COVID period, I was watching Steve Bannon. I think we played this also in Flashpoint, where there was this bold Canadian pastor who was kicking out these grundoons that were being sent in by the Canadian government to go shut down churches. Shut them down because, you know, they're going to declare martial law, and these are spreading centers, which we found out was garbage. And so this one bold pastor was like, get out of here, cast them out, cast them out. He kicked them out of his church. They were interrupting his church. He stood for his ground as though he was an American, you know, for the freedom to preach the gospel. And they didn't have the right to shut him down. Well, for that, they punished him. Eventually, they ended up forcing him to spend 50 nights in 2 separate prisons, abused and humiliated, and yet, like a true man of God, somehow he found favor with the inmates and actually ministered to them. But that's enough trauma. Now Trudeau wants to take him and put him on trial and have him face 10 years in prison. For what? Because he stood by the side of the road, ministered to the bold truckers who were simply trying to protest the tyranny of this Marxist regime, doing it peacefully, and they had their accounts frozen, they had their businesses destroyed, they had the United States, America, putting pressure on them, take care of this thing, Biden's telling Trudeau. Trudeau cracks down, police come in, and not a peep coming from anywhere in the world. This is what concerns me. Well, I got Pastor Arthur on. I just saw his son. Excuse me. I saw his son spoke in Europe to the Parliament and referred to, you know, his father's plight. And, you know, when he refers to, you're going to find out if we get a chance to watch the video. His son refers to Solidarity. Solidarity was the movement with Lech Walesa in Poland, in the shipyards, that worked with the Catholic Church and with the underground church to break communism out of Poland. It's celebrated as a movement. It was political, it was a strike, it was spiritual, it was aligned with the church. It's probably the formula for what we're going to end up with having to do in the United States. And it's worth studying. I put it literally into my book, God's Chaos President, the last book I wrote, saying, look at what happened in Poland. It's a model. Well, for daring to reference Solidarity And so you've got to stand together, as we did in Poland, against the tyranny of Marxism. That was what they call mischief, and it's going to subject them to potentially years of imprisonment, but not without a loud fight, because that ain't going to go down quietly. Pastor Pawlowski, can we get him on? There you are, my friend. Did I misrepresent anything there? I'm trying to catch up with the story, but is that pretty much, have I been faithful in giving the story?
Yes, thank you so much for having me on your show. I have been charged during this big lie over 40 times. I have been arrested multiple times. And of course, when I kicked them out of our church, when they were breaking Criminal Code of Canada, Section 176, 1, 2, and 3, they came with a vengeance. And that political vengeance is hunting me down to this day. I spent 50 days in isolation, solitary confinement. I was transferred, kidnapped by sheriffs from one city, transferred to another, put in max spot for the most dangerous terrorists in a country, and then ultimately, without the evaluation of the doctors, without the knowledge of Alberta Health Services, I was put in psych ward, just like the Soviets were doing when I was growing up, just like no North Koreans are doing and Chinese. So it's a total crazy insanity. During the trial, Crown prosecutor accused me of causing Canadian economy over $400 million worth of damages. Why? Because I dared to give the truckers and farmers hope. I said 3 times during my 19-minute sermon, stay peacefully, no guns, no swords, do it solidarity style. Just go and paralyze their system by simply refusing to cooperate, refusing to work with them. The Crown prosecutor during the trial, which had no witnesses, the entire evidence was my sermon, word by word. My sermon was on trial in the first time in the history of Canada. He compared my sermon, which you can listen to on YouTube to this day, to Rwanda genocide. He said that my words was like someone inciting murder on other people. So ultimately, a month later, I was found guilty. I'm the first Canadian ever to be found guilty on inciting mischief, which we don't even know what that means. Thought crime. Also, I am the first one to be charged and now convicted of eco-terrorism, interfering with the crucial infrastructure under the Defense Act. I mean, the sky is the limit. Those people are not stopping, and they are biting like crazy. Today, this morning, I learned that my sentencing that was supposed to be happening on August the 9th has been pushed again for September 18th. So they're toying with us. They're playing with me. I am on house arrest since I was released from prison. To this day, 16 months later, a pastor that feeds thousands of people. I run multiple churches. I am on house arrest. Why? Because I dared to give people hope in a time where the government betrayed them.
So so now they're pushing up to September 18th. Well, the good news there is we'll have to get you on Flashpoint, get you on some more broadcasts. You may be under house arrest, but you can still broadcast. We need to build pressure on this, because the only thing Trudeau and these guys care about is PR. And so tell me, how can we help you, Pastor? What can be done other than getting your story out like this?
Well, here is a very interesting thing that I have been observing between American politicians and the Canadian politicians. Canadian politicians are literally terrified of the American politicians. Whatever your senator or congressman or governor says, well, it's a nationwide news here in Canada. So political pressure does work. They are like cockroaches spreading the diseases left and right, and when you bring a light on what they're doing in darkness, they panic. They don't know how to react to that. So that's one. Telling the story, I see here is a very interesting thing. When I was released from prison, Canadian government came with offers. They offered me lots of money. They offered me a guaranteed position within the government in the next election. They offered me a well-paid job if I would only stop exposing corruption within the land. Now, they did that for 8 months. The past 2 months is coercion and blackmail. I was told I have to give them $150,000. I have to withdraw myself from politics, and I must stop exposing corruption. And if I don't do that, they said they own the judge, and the judge was ordered to lock me in prison. They said they're eliminating me from the board game. So I decided to do Lan's opposite. I'm a lion. I'm nobody's slave. I am a Christian. I'm a pastor. I know who my God is, and I do not bow before the hyenas. Lions do not bow before the hyenas. I'm not making deals with the evil. I am opposing and exposing evil. So I think that the best way to tackle this craziness is do it David's style. When David saw the giant to him was just an obstacle. On the other side of that a mountain of a man was David's destiny, and he knew that. So he needed to tackle that giant head-on collision. He was not intimidated. He was not hiding. He went over there and he looked into the enemy's eyes and says, "Who do you think you are, you uncircumcised Philistines, that you should defy the armies of the living God?" And boom, he strikes the enemy. That's how I have chosen to fight. I'm exposing them. I'm talking about it. And so politics, exposure, and support, those are the 3 things that we can do. And I believe that if we gain enough support in the United States and in other countries as well, I think they will back down. Because when I was 50 days in prison, they hated me on the inside more than they hated me on the outside. I know that Americans, Cindy and others, were talking about what is happening to me in prison, and I was doing shows from prison. I was during my telephone conversations, they were recorded, and I think they realized that me being there, they're turning me into a martyr, and they hated that idea, and eventually I got released. If we can master the same political pressure on those evil, wicked people, then they will just let me live my life.
That's interesting. I only got 1 minute left in this segment, but I want to tee something up. When we come back, I want to talk about the corruption you have been exposing, because evidently there's something there that you're putting your finger on. I'm curious about what it is they want you to stop talking about. And I'm interested also in your son's speech. Who was he speaking to? Where was he speaking? And do you think that will generate some of that political capital that will come from Europe, that is going to put a spotlight on civil liberties and freedom of speech in Canada, which Canada can't lecture the world about what they do if Canada is suppressing and violating its own religious liberties. Once again, we're talking with Pastor Artur Pawlowski. He is heading to a verdict regarding imprisonment. He's already been locked up 50 days. He is a modern-day reformer, a modern-day Tyndale. Oh boy, this episode was so hot, YouTube and Facebook might not be able to handle it. So go to lancewallnau.com/podcast or Rumble to hear the whole thing.